In the first part, they resisted to believe. In the second part, they immediately believed. Though today's gospel might appear to have two parts, this is to be understood as a gradual progress from picking up stones to throw at Jesus to believing in Jesus. May the grace and peace of Christ be with you today. They picked up stones to throw at Jesus. Stoning to death was prevalent in the Old Testament time, and there are clear instructions in the book of Deuteronomy and Leviticus. And there are several reasons, several crimes, several sins for which one could be stoned to death. And two reasons were most important. A person caught in adultery and a person who blasphemes. Now, coming to Jesus' time, we see these two. We have the famous story of the woman caught in adultery, how they were bringing the woman to Jesus before stoning her to death. And Jesus stepping in and defending that woman through that popular famous saying, "Let him who is without sin among you throw the first stone at her." And we see people picking stones a couple of times to throw at Jesus with the intention of stoning him to death because they thought he was blaspheming. According to the Gospels, at least 8 times the people were trying to kill him or seize him. And he escaped all those times because his hour had not yet come. But in the second part of the Gospel, we say things differently. Jesus moved across Jordan, and there people believed in him. There people saw Jesus and remembered everything that John the Baptist told about Jesus. And they placed their trust in him, their faith in him. So we see in the gospel a gradual process. We see it's two-part, and in the beginning they picked up stones. They failed to see Jesus as a Messiah. They failed to see Jesus as a fulfillment of the law and the prophets. They failed to see Jesus as a cornerstone. They failed to see Jesus as a Son of God. And there they picked up stones to throw at the cornerstone. They used the law of God against God himself. In the first part, they resisted to believe. In the second part, they immediately believed. Though today's gospel might appear to have two parts, this is to be understood as a gradual progress from picking up stones to throw at Jesus to believing in Jesus. These two parts, this progress can be seen in certain individuals. We have a great example in the person of St. Paul. We know after the time of Jesus, St. Stephen was stoned to death. And Paul, when he was still Saul, approved that act. And he went on persecuting Christians. And then we see at one point, the same person who was persecuting, who was stoning, who was approving the stoning Christians to death, turned out to be a proclaimer of Christ. The persecutor turns out to be a proclaimer. A man who approved the persecution and stoning of Christ and Christians began to be a staunch believer of Christ and a powerful proclaimer of Christ and his gospel. Now we are on the 5th Friday of Lent, and soon we enter into the Holy Week, and the next Friday is a Good Friday, where we deeply meditate and contemplate on the passion and death of Jesus, which he endured out of his great love for each of us. My dear friend, this is the most appropriate time to observe our progress. Are we held up in the first place of doubts and unwilling to believe, or we have been progressing towards believer of Christ?